We continue to learn new and disturbing details about the case of a fired Sarasota County deputy charged with attempted murder. Last month, Frankie Bybee was arrested after the sheriff says the 18-year veteran detective tried to murder an elderly woman to cover up the crimes he committed against her. Well, now, according to a new Internal Affairs report, Bybee might also face charges of prostitution. A woman came forward apparently saying she paid Bybee more than $100,000 for sex. Bybee also faces 10 new felony charges for using the victim's credit card at multiple ATMs across Sarasota.
Meantime, a former local deputy allegedly on call for sex. This man already facing attempted murder charges, and now investigators claim he also moonlighted as a prostitute. ABC Action News reporter Michael Paluska joins us live from Sarasota with a bizarre twist here. Michael?
Wendy, when you go through this Internal Affairs report, it's absolutely unbelievable what you're reading. Things happening while he was on duty in his patrol vehicle. He's still here at the county jail tonight, and this investigation really is just getting started. Our cameras were the only ones there as Sarasota detectives seized Frankie Bybee's truck from his Bradenton home. Investigators say it could have evidence related to the attempted murder of 83-year-old Marcia Soul. Sheriff Tom Knight says Bybee befriended Soul last year during a call to her home. The sheriff says he then took advantage of the 83-year-old, sold her dog on Craigslist, and used her debit card at multiple ATMs to withdraw money from her accounts. One withdrawal was even in uniform. While that part of the investigation has led to 10 new felony charges against Bybee, an Internal Affairs report shows a woman paid Bybee more than $100,000 over several years for sex. According to the report, Bybee even performed sex acts in his patrol unit on duty to send to the woman, who would in turn deposit cash into a PayPal account. All of this unraveling as Sarasota investigators dig deeper into the life of the married father of three who the sheriff says tried to commit murder to cover up his tracks.
Bybee mounted the victim and, while holding her down, forced prescription medication into her mouth. The victim lost consciousness, and when she awoke, she summoned help.
Bybee's bond initially was more than $1 million. Today, a judge decided to drop it to $365,000. People we spoke to in both the neighborhoods affected by this story told us that they are extremely concerned now that he will post that bond, and apparently there are some people trying to help him raise that money. We're live here tonight at the Sarasota County Jail. Michael Paluska, ABC Action News.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. I know it was kind of a quick turnaround. It was kind of a fluid morning for us. And like Caitlin said, we are still investigating this. It is a fluid investigation. I'm going to do everything I do to give you the information about an arrest that we made around 7 o'clock this morning, and we will keep you informed of other developments that may come up as this investigation continues. At 7 a.m. this morning, deputies with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office arrested Frankie Eugene Bybee, an 18-year Sheriff's Office employee, after allegations of harassment by a 79-year-old Sarasota woman led to a criminal investigation and felony charges. Bybee's actions were first called into question on December the 20th, 2016, when the victim reported to us that Bybee was harassing her. An internal affairs investigation was launched and quickly revealed that Bybee had befriended the victim after responding to her home for a call for service on October the 21st, 2016. Bybee began making regular visits to the victim's home while on and off duty, and also introduced the victim to several members of his family. Detectives learned that Bybee took possession of the victim's dog while she was hospitalized and received a check for $1,000 in the event that the dog had any medical needs while the victim was away. Bybee deposited the money in his personal bank account and later told our detectives that he had rehomed the dog on Craigslist. The victim told us that Bybee only had permission to watch the dog while she was away and was not entitled to keep it or sell it. The photo to my left over here you can see is a text message from Bybee that he sent to the victim while she was hospitalized. It was at this time that we recognized Bybee initiated a relationship with the victim for both his personal and financial gain. On January 9th, 2017, an envelope addressed to Bybee was delivered to our main office here in Sarasota. Within the envelope were 4 checks belonging to the victim, made out to Bybee and his 3 children, totaling $65,000. When shown the check, the victim stated she didn't write or sign the checks. Our forensic analysis found Bybee's fingerprint on one of the checks. He was immediately removed and placed on administrative leave. 3 days later, on January 12th, patrol deputies were called out to the victim's home. The victim reported that Bybee entered her unlocked home while wearing dark clothing and blue latex gloves. Bybee mounted the victim and, while holding her down, forced prescription medication into her mouth. The victim lost consciousness, and when she awoke, she summoned help. It was determined that her home was filled with carbon monoxide after the internal door to her garage was left open and her car was left running. Our investigation revealed that Bybee attempted to kill the victim and make it appear to be a suicide. Fortunately, she was unsuccessful and she survived the attack. With signed arrest warrants this morning, detectives today arrested Bybee and booked him into the Sarasota County Jail, where he faces the following charges: exploitation of the elderly by using his position as a law enforcement officer and person of trust to gain access to the victim's home, dog, assets, and potentially more. Bybee asked the victim for her financial account information, withheld her dog, visited her in the hospital in order to further establish and take advantage of their relationship. Petty theft for stealing the victim's checks and mailing them to the sheriff's office, where latent print examiners found Bybee's fingerprints. Forgery for unlawfully signing the victim's name on 4 checks made out to Bybee and his 3 children in a total of $65,000. Grand theft for Bybee's attempt to deprive the victim of $65,000. Grand theft for depriving the victim of her dog, which we learned would be estimated to be worth about $900. Burglary of an occupied dwelling for the offense on January the 12th, when Bybee unlawfully entered the victim's home with the intent to kill her. Battery on a victim of 65 years or older for the offenses of January 12th, when Bybee attempted to force the victim to take pills, knock her unconscious, causing lacerations, abrasions, and the bruising of her body. Attempted murder for the January 12th offenses in which Bybee burglarized the victim's home, attempted to force her to take prescription medication, and left her internal garage door open and the car running in order to fill her home with carbon monoxide, for the purposes of killing her and making the incident appear to be a suicide. I want to say, too, is that we wanted to make sure we handled Mr. Bybee with our criminal actions, and Florida statutes has certain career service rights of employees that are in public sector, and we have initiated the paperwork for his termination, which will be followed up, but we wanted to get him arrested so he couldn't victimize people anymore. I think it's important to relay to the public that Bybee's actions not only do not reflect the nearly 1,000 members of this agency who represent it every day, who are around kids, who are out there in the public, who this community has trust in. The integrity and the honor of this agency is not reflective of Frank Bybee's actions. It's beyond unacceptable an individual who works in a position of trust and guardianship to their community is capable of heinous crimes like Frankie Bybee committed. His actions are a disgrace not only to this agency, but to the law enforcement profession. As the head of this agency, I can tell you that his colleagues that he has worked with are extremely disappointed, as I'm sure the community is. Our team of detectives, since this came about, has worked tirelessly to pursue every lead and will continue to do so and continue to gather more information because this is still an open, fluid investigation. We have a lot more work to do on this. I think it's important that since he's worked here for 18 years, we would urge anybody in the public that has had contact with him, has maybe not contacted us, but something didn't seem right in his actions towards them, or maybe he has done something that they wish they would have reported and they would like to do so now, to contact our criminal investigation section at 941-861-4932. And like I said, we still have a lot more work to do with this. We have subpoenas out, and we'll provide that information when we can in the future. But right now, he is in the Sarasota County Jail, and we wanted to get him out of the public so he couldn't exploit anybody else. So with that, I'll do the best I can do to take a couple questions. I hope I've given you everything you need. Go ahead, John.
Sheriff, can you tell us about the relationship you had with this woman? Was it romantic in any nature?
That's still something that we're investigating. I can't say yes or no for certain, but at this point, nothing would put it past me with Frankie. But certainly, nothing at this point would lead us to believe that. It's certainly just the point that he was taking advantage of her because of her age and winning her confidence, so to exploit her for her money.
Could you talk to us a little bit more about his career? Quite a long one, almost 20 years.
Patrol deputy, detective for a certain amount of time. Nothing glamorous, I would say, about him. Very benign, but certainly 18 years a long time to wear a uniform and to have the opportunity to win public trust and to use that uniform to be sent to her home to provide her help and then exploit it is unacceptable.
Sheriff, you mentioned that his family is involved in this as well. Like, can you explain that at all?
I wouldn't say his family's involved in it. I can't go that far to say it. I would say that he used his children as an impetus to gain money and trust from her, so he introduced his children, his family to her. And again, that's the ongoing process of continuing to winning her trust with the purpose of exploiting her. And so he did use it. And like you see here with the dog, you can see his text message to her while she's in the hospital, exploiting her dog to her to continue to win her public trust with, we believe, the purposes of accessing her financial accounts.
Sheriff, has he explained at all his actions as to why he did this? And your reaction to what he has allegedly done?
It would be nice to have somebody who wore this uniform for 18 years to be forthright and give us the truth. But he's a criminal, and he's acting like a criminal. And so thus he gets arrested and treated like a criminal, and he'll get prosecuted like a criminal. And I'm hoping he gets prosecuted a little bit more exceptionally than a normal criminal because he used the uniform for public trust. So it would be nice for him to tell the truth at some point in time, but at this point with the detectives, when we had him in here today at 7:30 in the morning, he didn't want to talk to him. So that itself, as a law enforcement officer, if you didn't do anything wrong, as a cop, and you have the reasons why you did anything wrong, having that opportunity to talk to people you've worked with, I would believe, is a huge story itself, that he didn't want to talk to him, invoked his rights. He's a criminal.
Can you give us any indication as to
Go ahead,
whether or
Kim.
not-
Sheriff Knight, I know this does come as a surprise. Is there anything else in his background? Any more IA investigations that had ever been against him before?
Yes, he's been investigated 5 times. He was sustained investigations twice on him for violations of policies, more than anything, which is what we hold accountability internally on our employees by disciplinary actions. I suspended him myself 2 years ago for being less than truthful with his supervisors, and I suspended him for 40 hours among some other disciplinary actions that were put on him. He was suspended in 2008 for 40 hours for not following the proper procedures and rules.
Had he received demotions?
Had he received demotions? No, he's never promoted.
Can you talk a little bit about the timeline here and when police became involved with the investigation? I know there was obviously some theft prior to the attempted murder.
We started an inquiry in internal affairs on him when it came to our attention on December the 20th, was when everything was initiated.
So the attempted murder happened after the investigation had already
While we were investigating him, when he entered her home was on January 12th
of this year.
when he entered her home.
So the investigation had already started into
The internal affairs investigation had started, and we were mirroring that with a criminal investigation too, and he was removed from duty on January 9th. Okay? Thank you, everybody.
This is ABC Action News.
It would be nice to have somebody who wore this uniform for 18 years to be forthright and give us the truth, but he's a criminal.
From trusted deputy to attempted murder suspect, the intricate scheme this lawman is accused of hatching against a 79-year-old woman and his history of breaking the rules that we've uncovered. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jameis Dewar.
And I'm Wendy Ryan. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, the Sarasota County Sheriff calling one of his own a disgrace. A nearly 20-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office now in jail for attempted murder and exploiting a 79-year-old woman.
Carson Chambers is live outside the Sarasota County Jail with the way the sheriff says the deputy planned to make the murder look like a suicide. Carson?
Right. The sheriff says that Frankie Bybee was an on-duty deputy at the time, and he was called out to this woman's home back in October to help her. Then the sheriff says he took advantage of her financially and even tried to kill her.
Oh my gosh.
Her story had neighbors in disbelief.
She said just basically that the man tried to kill her, and that was it. And I said, well, I really couldn't believe it.
A 79-year-old Sarasota woman taken advantage of, almost murdered, according to the sheriff, by a veteran deputy.
She's been in very bad health in the last couple of years.
Sarasota Sheriff Tom Knight says Frankie Bybee was a deputy, a detective for 18 years. Tonight, he's being held on almost $2 million bond for trying to kill Marcia Saul inside her own home.
Bybee mounted the victim and, while holding her down, forced prescription medication into her mouth. The victim lost consciousness, and when she awoke, she summoned help. It was determined that her home was filled with carbon monoxide after the internal door to her garage was left open and her car was left running.
Bybee stared a hole in the carpet when he came before a judge this afternoon.
He has substantial ties to the community, his family, his wife, his children. He has a home.
Sheriff Knight says Bybee befriended the elderly woman back in October when called to her house on duty. That he started forging checks in her name to himself and his 3 kids, more than $65,000 worth. Even got rid of her dog in a Craigslist ad when she was hospitalized.
He's a criminal, and he's acting like a criminal, and so thus he gets arrested and treated like a criminal.
Bybee was placed on administrative leave on January 9th after Sol filed a harassment complaint against him. But the sheriff says he returned to her home days later and tried to fake her suicide. And Bybee has been the subject of 5 internal investigative complaints. He was actually reprimanded, and one of them for lying to his superiors. And the sheriff says he will now be fired. Live in Sarasota, I'm Carson Chambers, ABC Action News.
He does know this lady. I don't think there's any contention that he doesn't know her. and that he had some involvement in her life. But these checks that are allegedly taken were never taken. These were checks that were sent to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, which were never cashed, which were never deposited in Mr. Bybie's account, which were never even seen by him in any type of imagination. But when we start looking at these charges, Your Honor, if you would, Your Honor, turn to the burglary of a dwelling, as well as the battery on a victim under 65 and the attempted murder charge. All those charges are stemming from the same event on that night. So all three of those are directly related to each other. The exploitation of the elderly, the grand theft of $25,000, as the court can see from the arrest warrant, that's $25,000 for an allegedly stolen dog. $25,000. So, Honor, we're asking that the court consider schedule bonds in this scenario, what they would be for anybody else. Mr. Bybie does deny these allegations, and we will continue to provide the evidence to the State Attorney's Office of Mr. Bybie's innocence of these charges. He is innocent until proven guilty. $900,000 is tantamount to a bond. He has substantial ties to the community, his family, his wife, his children. He has a home. As far as I know, he's still employed with the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office at this point. Remaining him and keeping him in custody would not only be egregious as far as the bond goes, but also put him in personal safety here in Sarasota County, or really anywhere in custody. He's not a threat to flee. He doesn't have a passport. The court can place certain conditions on Mr. Bybie to whereas he is not a danger to the community and or the victim in this case. So, Your Honor, we're asking that the court set a reasonable bond. I think in this case, that $50,000 on the attempted murder charge would be more than sufficient. I think the schedule bond on the second-degree felonies of $7,500, and then $1,500 on the third-degree felonies as scheduled would certainly cover it for Mr. Bybie in this case. He's not a threat to flee. He is going to show up for court, and he does intend on fighting these charges all the way through trial. So then, Your Honor, and I would also ask the court to consider that the only allegation that would even bring up a nebia requirement is that the state is alleging that he received 2 checks in this case of $1,000 each. Certainly the court, and there is no evidence of any other checks received by Mr. Bybie any other way, that any other monies that he has is related to any type of illegal activity. So I'm sure if the government had that information, they'd be providing it to the court, but that's all that's out there. So we're asking the court to put a schedule bond on Mr. Bybie, $50,000 on the attempted murder charge. If the court would like to put him on supervised release and place some conditions that way, he'd be more than agreeable to do that, and that the court not require a nebia hold in this case.
At this time, on counts 1 through 7, the court will honor the previously set bonds that Judge Drew ordered set when he reviewed the various warrants. Those will remain the same. As to count 8, the attempted murder charge, I'll honor the state's request and set the bond at $900,000 based upon the facts of the case. As to all counts, the defendant shall be placed on high supervised release. Mr. Brandt, will you continue to represent him, or do you want me to have anything reviewed for the public defender?
I am going to be representing him, Your Honor.
Okay. There was no argument as or against probable cause, and the court finds probable cause as to all 8 charges at this time. The following special conditions on all counts for the high supervised release include the following with 0 tolerance. No contact in any way, shape, or form with the alleged victim whose initials are MS, and full name is written on the court appearance record. There is no return to the property located at 3296 Brompton Lane in Sarasota, Florida. Do not possess a firearm or ammunition while on a form of pre-trial release. And the court will grant the state's request for the equivalent of a nebia hold, that a hearing would need to take place prior to any bond being posted. The arraignment date is February 24th. Is there anything else from the state?
No, Judge.
Update: Florida cop who tried to murder 79-year-old woman worked as male prostitute while on duty last week. I posted on the COPBLOCK network about Frankie Bybee, a Sarasota County Sheriff's deputy who extorted cash from an elderly woman then tried to murder her in a staged suicide attempt once she filed a complaint against him. In the process, he also sold her dog on Craigslist, after charging her $1,000 to care for it while she was in the hospital. Yesterday, an internal affairs report in the case was released. Not only did it contain new details concerning the original charges, including surveillance video of Bybee using the victim's ATM card to withdraw money, but it also included some new revelations about business deals he was involved in, along with 10 additional charges related to his use of the debit card and fraudulent online purchases Bybee made. Deputy Bybee is also facing new accusations that he acted as a male prostitute while on duty. The latter claim involves him having been paid to have sex with a woman, as well as to record videos of himself masturbating in his patrol car. The woman came forward after seeing media coverage of his charges for the murder attempt via ABC Action News in Tampa. According to the report, a woman, Eleanor Jarvis, came forward and told detectives that they were involved in an ongoing business deal for several years that included Department Bybee being financially compensated for engaging in sexual acts with her. The report said he met her years ago in a hotel room near Boston, Massachusetts and was paid $5,000 for their initial sexual encounter. The report also said that Bybee would record himself in a sex act in his patrol vehicle while on duty and send the video to her via an app called Tango, and then she would transfer $500 into his PayPal account. The total payout, according to law enforcement, for these acts was more than $100,000. The sheriff said Bybee's actions were first brought to their attention on January 9. That is when Marcia Soule filed a complaint against then Deputy Bybee. Bybee, according to Knight, responded to a call for service at Soule's home on October 21. He befriended Soule and began to take advantage of her. Investigators released video they say shows Bybee withdrawing money from ATMs across Sarasota using Soule's stolen debit card. In one transaction, Bybee is in uniform. On Tuesday, Bybee was charged with 10 new counts of criminal use of information that involves several unauthorized uses of the victim's credit card. Also, according to the report, just prior to the murder attempt Bybee had used the original victim email account to send a message to her doctor pretending to be her and expressing suicidal implications. As a result, the victim was involuntarily committed for a mental health evaluation, commonly referred to as a Baker Act hold. It was later determined that Deputy Bybee's IP address was used to send the email as part of his plot to make it appear she had committed suicide. In spite of all that, Bybee's bail amount was dropped from $1,030,000 to $365,620.